Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
Chiefs win. Cry, Eagles, cry.
Great, excited to be back early.
You know, every day I got the Three Stooges in the studio with me is a good fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So let's make sure he gets that bag.
F-R-A-U-D-S, fries! Woo!
Justin's way ahead in picks. That's all that you need to fucking know.
Show's over.
Show's over. We're going home. I would like to welcome you back to another page of the Playbook Sports Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of 32 NFL off seasons in 32 days. Today, we are looking at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers fans, I feel for you guys, man. Maybe the most gut-wrenching loss of the playoffs last season. A 27-0 lead at halftime, and then just watching it slowly evaporate as the offense quit scoring and the defense quit stopping them. It really did, during that game, start to just feel inevitable that the Jags were going to come back and steal that game from them. But there are plenty of reasons for optimism for this Chargers team. The defense that was built up all last offseason, where you spent all of that money, should be back and healthy and ready to go. And I do like the moves that they've made to improve the team on both sides of the ball. Let's talk about it. Key additions this offseason. I really like the addition of Kellen Moore at offensive coordinator. He was fielding super talented offenses in Dallas, and I think he's stepping into an even better situation in Los Angeles. I really do think there's a good chance he helps this offense take even another step forward from where they've been. Otherwise, not a ton to speak of when it comes to player additions. They re-signed some players, but they didn't bring in much. But I also expected this sort of low-key offseason from them. Last offseason, they spent a ton of money. J.C. Jackson, Sebastian Joseph Day, both got huge contracts, and the Chargers are having to keep one eye on the future, much like, the Bengals are, and much like these other teams are having to with their young, talented quarterbacks, because the impending Justin Herbert extension just got a little bit more expensive with the Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson extensions, because Justin Herbert puts up the stats just like both of them, and none of them have won a Super Bowl, so they can't even use that against him. So they have to start saving some money somewhere and keep an eye on that. So they did have to do some juggling with the cap to keep the core of this team together, but they pulled it off, and there's no reason why they can't be right back in the mix for the playoffs. Key losses for the Chargers. Also, not a ton to speak on here. They did lose their defensive coordinator, Ronaldo Hill, who actually took a lesser job to go work with his old coach, Vic Fangio, again. But outside of that, honestly, this team and staff were relatively held together or even slightly improved upon. Let's talk about their draft. Chargers spent, like I said earlier, all of last offseason trying to build their defense into a unit that could match the firepower on their offense and also go toe-to-toe with the insanely talented offenses of the AFC West. With the injuries on the defense, that hurt, but then, honestly, their offense kind of let them down at times too, especially when you talk about that playoff game. Yeah, they had a 27-0 lead, but they only scored 3 more points the rest of the game. That's not going to get it done when you take your foot off the gas like that. And then Keenan Allen obviously missed some time, really was hurting my fantasy team at the beginning of the year. I was cursing his name, and then he came back and balled out, so all was forgiven. And with Allen getting up there in age, the Chargers decided to attack offense with their first pick, a player who was frequently mocked to them and also frequently compared to their number 2 wide receiver, Mike Williams. That man is Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU. This guy is a classic go-up-and-get-it sort of wide receiver. He is 6'3" with a 40-inch vertical. That is a ton of height to have to contend with. Unquestionably, this guy's a fantastic athlete. I do, however, have my concerns about him. He's a bit of a long strider. It takes him time to get up to his top speed and get going, so a press corner could give him fits as he tries to get off of him. So he also needs to continue to work on that and developing his route running, which was a little bit lacking on the tape. But I think with a good coach such as Kellen Moore, I think that they'll be able to teach him that pretty well. I also do like their addition on the defensive line in Tuli Tuipulotu in the second round. Slightly undersized defensive tackle in a 4-3 scheme, but would make an excellent 3-4 defensive end in my opinion. Excels at stopping the run, which is what the Chargers were struggling stopping last season. So I really like that addition in the second round. The guy, I think he could be a stud. And then the big news, in my opinion, we've got a bit of a quarterback battle brewing in Los Angeles between Justin Herbert, and Max Duggan. 7th round quarterback pick out of TCU. No, I'm just kidding. But I do really like the addition. He was very, very good last year for TCU. There's a reason TCU made it all the way to the championship game. He's coming in there with at least one other TCU, obviously Quentin Johnson, but I think they even drafted another TCU player from this past year's team. TCU had some talent on it, and Max Duggan was in the Heisman contention, had them in the national championship. That's impressive. Like, I don't care what kind of team you have around you, that's impressive. With a 7th round pick, whatever, that's a throwaway pick for the most part. He could turn into a very solid backup quarterback for them, and I know Chase Daniel has been the guy there for a while, but maybe now he can go on to his 15th NFL team and continue his career of just stealing money from NFL franchises. I do like the picks that they made this draft. I wish that they would have gotten a wide receiver that was more similar to Keenan Allen as opposed to being a carbon copy of Mike Williams, because Keenan Allen's the older one that they're going to have to replace soon. They just paid Mike Williams, so I think that they just have another guy a lot like him, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but man, I would have loved, like a Jordan Addison for them or a Zay Flowers for them would have been really exciting. But at the end of the day, Quentin Johnson is a supreme athlete, and he has the measurables you can't teach. You're just born with it. So I don't mind that, and like I said, I really like their other picks too. For their draft grade, I give them a very solid B. I don't have any egregious problems with it. It was solid, and it was relatively safe. Wouldn't have minded a tight end for them either. Dalton Kincaid still being on the board when that is definitely a position of need would have been, made for an exciting time over there, but I can't be too disappointed with the Quentin Johnson pickup. So overall, this offseason, there is some stuff to like here. I really do. I think the Kellen Moore addition is a great pickup, and hopefully he changes up their offense so that way Austin Eckler doesn't have to catch 100 passes out of the backfield. Unless you're on my fantasy team, Austin, then please catch all of those passes. Draft class was all right, not spectacular. A solid draft class with really little to no free agent additions. And since this is an off-season grade, not a roster grade, I like to remind everybody, I give them a C+. Those are the vibes I'm getting from this. Slightly above average. Keep in mind every single thing that they've had to do this offseason, they've had to do it with one eye on the Herbert extension coming up, which makes it really hard to make any splashy, exciting moves this offseason. So, no change is fine for them, but it doesn't make for a high offseason grade, if that makes sense. So will this team take a step forward, or have they plateaued? Can the defense figure it out and improve enough to slow down the potent offenses that the Chargers face? I'm certain that the Chargers believe themselves to be true Super Bowl contenders because of what they have on roster. They have a talented roster. Do they have the depth to go up against the Chiefs and knock them off? Can they overcome what happened against Jacksonville last season? I don't know, but it's going to be a big season out there in LA, and I am truly excited to watch it. So thanks, guys, for stopping in for another day of 32 NFL offseasons in 32 days, and we will be back at it tomorrow.